She betrayed the billionaire CEO to save her family, but he never stopped loving her. I sold your company secrets to save my sister's life. The words hung in the air between them, sharp as broken glass. Chase Whitmore's face transformed from confusion to disbelief to something worse, betrayal in its purest form. You did what? His voice was dangerously quiet, the kind of calm that precedes destruction. Sloane Carter stood her ground, though her heart was shattering. My sister was dying. The treatment cost millions we didn't have. I made the only choice I could. You could have come to me. His control finally broke, voice rising as he slammed his palm against the desk. I would have given you anything, everything. Instead, you destroyed what we had, what we built, and be forever in your debt. Tears streamed down her face. I couldn't live with that power between us. Chase's eyes, once filled with love, now held only ice. Get out. I never want to see your face again. 2 years later, fate would prove him wrong. What would you sacrifice for someone you love? Your reputation? Your future? We've all faced choices where every path hurts. Today's story is about a woman who betrayed a billionaire to save her family, and the man who never stopped loving her. Can love survive the ultimate betrayal? If you've ever believed that love deserves a second chance, take a second right now. Hit subscribe so you never miss a story that reminds you what forgiveness really costs. The first time Sloane Carter met Chase Whitmore, she spilled coffee on his custom Italian suit. It was at a charity gala in Manhattan, where Sloane was working as an event coordinator. She'd been rushing to fix a lighting issue when she collided with a wall of expensive fabric and solid muscle. I'm so sorry, she gasped, watching in horror as the dark stains spread across what she instantly recognized as a suit that cost more than her monthly rent. Instead of anger, she was met with a chuckle. Well, that's one way to make an introduction. Sloane looked up into the most striking blue eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a face that regularly graced business magazines. Chase Whitmore, tech innovator and CEO of Whitmore Industries. At 34, he'd built a technology empire valued at billions, yet somehow looked even more impressive in person than in photographs. I'll pay for the cleaning, she offered, knowing it was a ridiculous promise given her bank account. How about dinner instead? He countered, his smile transforming his serious face into something dangerously charming. I'm working, she replied, gesturing to her event coordinator badge. Tomorrow, then. I don't date clients. I'm not a client. I'm just a guy with a ruined suit and an inexplicable desire to know your name. Despite herself, Sloane smiled. Sloane Carter. Chase Whitmore. He extended his hand. And I'll pick you up at 7 tomorrow. She should have said no. Men like Chase Whitmore didn't date women like her. They collected them briefly before moving on. But something in those blue eyes made her nod instead. 7 it is. One dinner turned into 2, then 3. Sloane discovered that beneath the polished exterior of the billionaire CEO was a man with a wicked sense of humor, a brilliant mind, and unexpected moments of vulnerability. He'd built his empire from nothing, the son of a factory worker who died when Chase was just 16. He'd put himself through college on scholarships, sleeping 4 hours a night while working and studying. You never gave up, Sloane said one night as they walked along the Hudson River, the city lights reflecting on the water. I couldn't afford to, he replied simply. Failure wasn't an option. Is that why you push yourself so hard even now? You have everything already. Chase stopped walking, turning to face her. Not everything. The kiss that followed changed everything between them. Within months, Sloane had moved into Chase's penthouse. Her life transformed from struggling to make rent in her tiny Brooklyn apartment to attending galas on Chase's arm, weekends at his Hamptons estate, private jets to Paris for dinner. You're spoiling me, she protested one evening as he fastened a diamond necklace around her throat, a just because gift that cost more than her parents' house. I'm loving you, he corrected, his lips brushing her neck. There's a difference. And she believed him. Despite the whispers that followed them, the speculation that she was a gold digger, a social climber, Sloane knew what they had was real. Chase showed her in 1,000 ways, not just with extravagant gifts, but with the way he listened when she spoke, how he remembered details about her family, the respect he showed for her opinions, even when they differed from his own. Yet sometimes, in quiet moments, Sloane felt a flutter of unease. The disparity in their worlds was vast. Chase operated in realms of power and wealth she could barely comprehend. His business decisions affected thousands of lives. He moved markets with a single statement. "Does it ever scare you?" she asked him once. "Having so much responsibility?" Chase considered the question seriously, as he did all her questions. Not scared, aware. There's a weight to it, knowing your choices impact so many people. "How do you handle it?" "By remembering why I started. It wasn't about the money. It was about creating something meaningful, something that would outlast me." He pulled her closer. "And now I have another reason to get it right." "What's that?" "Our future." He kissed her forehead. "I want to build something worthy of the family we'll have someday." Family. The word warmed Sloane's heart. She'd grown up in a close-knit family in Connecticut, her parents, herself, and her younger sister Ember. They hadn't had much in terms of material wealth, but they'd been rich in love and support. The thought of creating that with Chase, of children with his blue eyes and determined spirit, filled her with joy. What she didn't know then was how quickly that dream would shatter. "You can already feel where this is headed, can't you? Don't look away now. Tap subscribe before this turns into the kind of story you wish you'd followed from the start." The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Sloane was in Chase's home office reviewing charity proposals for the Whitmore Foundation when her mother's number flashed on her phone. "Mom, what's wrong?" She knew immediately from her mother's voice that something was terribly wrong. "It's Ember. She collapsed at school. We're at the hospital." Sloane was on a plane to Connecticut within the hour, Chase arranging everything despite being in the middle of crucial merger negotiations. "Family comes first," he said firmly, kissing her goodbye at the helipad that would take her to the airport. "Call me when you know more." At the hospital, Sloane found her parents aged a decade in a day, sitting shell-shocked outside her sister's room. Ember, just 21, and in her junior year of college, lay pale against the hospital sheets, monitors beeping steadily around her. "What are they saying?" Sloane asked, hugging her mother tightly. "They're running tests," her father answered, his voice hollow. "Something autoimmune, they think. Her organs are shutting down." The diagnosis came 3 days later, a rare autoimmune disorder that was attacking Ember's major organs. The prognosis was grim, without immediate intervention. "There's a treatment," the specialist explained, "an experimental immunotherapy that's shown promising results in cases like Ember's." Hope flared. "Then let's do it," Sloane said. The doctor's expression remained grave. "The treatment isn't covered by insurance. It's still in late-stage trials." "How much?" Sloane's father asked. The full course of treatment, including hospitalization and follow-up care, would be approximately $2.3 million. The number hung in the air, like a death sentence. Sloane's parents were middle class, her father a high school teacher, her mother a nurse. Their combined savings wouldn't come close. "We'll find a way," Sloane promised, squeezing Ember's cold hand. "Whatever it takes." She called Chase that night, explaining the situation through tears. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," he said, his voice warm with concern. "What can I do?" Sloane hesitated. She could ask him directly for the money. She knew he would give it without hesitation. But something held her back. Their relationship had always felt equal despite their different financial situations. Taking millions from him would change that forever. "Just some time off," she said instead. "I need to be here with my family. Take all the time you need. I love you." "I love you too." Over the next weeks, Sloane exhausted every option. She and her parents took out second mortgages on their homes. They launched crowdfunding campaigns. They applied for medical grants and charity assistance. Sloane sold her car, her jewelry. Except the diamond necklace from Chase, she couldn't bear to part with it. Anything of value. It wasn't enough. Not even close. Meanwhile, Ember grew weaker. The doctors spoke in increasingly urgent tones about time running out. Sloane barely slept, researching alternatives, making calls, sending emails to anyone who might help. Chase called daily, offering support and love. But Sloane kept the full extent of her desperation from him. She told herself it was pride, but deep down, she knew it was fear. Fear of the power imbalance that would exist between them if he became her family's financial savior. One night, alone in her childhood bedroom while her parents kept vigil at the hospital, Sloane received an email that changed everything. "Miss Carter," it began, "I represent a party interested in certain financial information from Whitmore Industries. We are aware of your access to the company's systems and your family's current medical crisis. We are prepared to offer $3 million in exchange for specific records dating back 5 years. This offer is time-sensitive and completely confidential." Sloane stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The email included details that proved the sender knew exactly who she was, her relationship with Chase, and her sister's condition. It was clearly illegal corporate espionage, probably aimed at damaging Whitmore Industries or giving a competitor an edge. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Then her phone rang her mother calling from the hospital. "The doctors say we're running out of time," her mother sobbed. "They're talking about comfort measures, Sloane. They're giving up on her." After the call, Sloane sat in the dark, the email still open on her laptop. $3 million. Enough to save Ember and secure her parents' future. All for information she had access to through Chase's home system. He had never hidden his passwords from her, trusting her completely. The choice before her was impossible. Betray the man she loved or watch her sister die. Some stories break you and rebuild you in the same breath. Stay through this one. Subscribe so you'll be here when the moment of hope finally comes. For 3 days, Sloane fought an internal battle unlike any she'd ever faced. She barely ate or slept, torn between loyalty and desperation. She researched the treatment again, hoping for alternatives. She considered finally asking Chase directly, imagining the scenario from every angle. But each time she thought of asking him, she pictured the future. Every family gathering, every holiday, every milestone with Ember would be possible only because of Chase's money. Her family would forever be indebted to him. And while Chase would never hold it over them, the knowledge would always be there. On the 4th day, the hospital called. Ember had developed a fever, her weakened immune system failing further. "Weeks have become days," the doctor said gently. That night, Sloane sat at Chase's home computer while he was at a late board meeting. With shaking hands, she accessed the company's financial records. The whistleblower had been specific about what they wanted: tax documents, offshore account information, records of certain transactions that, as Sloane reviewed them, appeared questionable at best, potentially illegal at worst. Had Chase been cutting corners? The evidence suggested practices that, while perhaps common in high-level business, existed in ethical gray areas. Nothing definitively criminal, but enough to damage the company's reputation if made public. Sloane copied the files, tears streaming down her face. She thought of Chase, his dreams, his hard work, his trust in her. Then she thought of Ember, pale and fading in her hospital bed, time slipping away. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm so sorry." She sent the email with the attached files to the anonymous whistleblower. Within hours, confirmation came. The money would be transferred to an offshore account in her name. By morning, it would be available. Sloane felt no relief, only a hollow ache where her heart should be. She had saved her sister, but at what cost? Chase returned home late that night, exhausted but smiling when he saw her. "I missed you," he said, kissing her gently. "How's Ember doing?" "The same," Sloane managed, unable to meet his eyes. "I'm going back to Connecticut tomorrow. I wish I could come with you, but this merger is at a critical stage." He brushed her hair back from her face. "Soon, though, I promise." That night, as Chase slept beside her, Sloane stared at the ceiling, silently, saying goodbye. By morning, the whistleblower would have what they wanted. Within days, perhaps hours, the information would be used against Chase, against Whitmore Industries. When that happened, it wouldn't take long for Chase to discover the source of the leak. She would lose him forever. But Ember would live. With that thought, Sloane finally closed her eyes, tears seeping into the pillow. The next morning, she left for Connecticut before Chase woke, leaving only a note saying she needed to be with her family. The coward's way out, she knew, but she couldn't bear to look into his eyes knowing what was coming. 3 days later, it happened. The financial records were leaked to both federal authorities and the press. Headlines screamed about tax evasion and questionable business practices at Whitmore Industries. The company's stock plummeted. Federal investigators descended. And Chase called. "Did you do it?" His voice was ice, all warmth gone. Sloan closed her eyes, sitting alone in her parents' living room while they were at the hospital with Ember, who had already begun the experimental treatment, funded by money that had appeared miraculously in Sloan's account. "Yes," she answered simply. Silence stretched between them, heavy with betrayal. "Why?" The single word contained oceans of pain. "I had no choice." "You always had a choice." His control broke, anger flooding through. "You could have talked to me. Whatever you needed, I would have given it to you." "It wasn't that simple." "It was exactly that simple. You chose to betray me instead of trust me." His voice dropped, somehow more devastating in its quietness. "I thought I knew you, Sloan." "I'm sorry." The words were wholly inadequate. "Your things will be packed and sent to your parents' address. Don't come back to the penthouse. Don't contact me again." The line went dead. Sloan sat motionless, phone in hand, as the full weight of what she'd done crashed over her. She had saved Ember, yes, but she had lost Chase, lost the future they'd planned, the love that had been the center of her world. The price of her sister's life was her own happiness, a trade she would make again, but one that left her shattered nonetheless. Would you have done what Sloan did? Comment below, then hit subscribe to see how choices like this echo through every life they touch. The federal investigation into Whitmore Industries lasted 4 months. Chase faced deposition after deposition, his company's practices scrutinized under the harshest light. In the end, the findings were mixed, some questionable tax strategies, but nothing definitively criminal. The company paid substantial fines, implemented new compliance measures, and weathered the storm. Publicly, Chase Whitmore emerged seemingly unscathed. He gave measured interviews about lessons learned and corporate responsibility. He oversaw the company's recovery with the same brilliance that had built it. Whitmore Industries stock gradually rebounded. But privately, Chase was a different man. "Sir, the board is waiting," his executive assistant reminded him one rainy afternoon, 6 months after the scandal broke. Chase stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, watching raindrops trace patterns down the glass. Manhattan sprawled before him, a city he'd once felt he owned. Now it all seemed hollow. "I'll be right there," he replied, straightening his tie. The mask slid into place, the confident CEO, the unflappable leader. No one at Whitmore Industries had seen their boss falter, not once during the entire ordeal. They whispered about his iron control, his resilience. None of them knew that he still reached for her in his sleep, that he'd kept one of her scarves hidden in his bedside drawer, that sometimes, driving through the city, he thought he glimpsed her in a crowd, and his heart would stop before he realized it was just another woman with honey blonde hair. The betrayal had been professional and personal, a double blow that should have killed any feelings he had for Sloan. Yet somehow, impossibly, he still loved her. The realization infuriated him. "Mr. Whitmore?" His assistant appeared in the doorway. "They're waiting." Chase nodded, pushing thoughts of Sloan away. He had a company to run, employees who depended on him. His personal pain was irrelevant. In the boardroom, he was the Chase Whitmore everyone expected, decisive, strategic, forward-thinking. The discussion centered on new directions for the company, ways to rebuild not just their financial standing, but their reputation. "We need to be more than profitable," Chase said, surprising several board members. "We need to be purposeful." "Meaning?" asked Richard Dalton, the longest-serving board member. "Meaning we use our technology for something beyond market share, something that matters." The idea had been forming in Chase's mind for months. Before the scandal, Whitmore Industries had focused primarily on consumer technology and enterprise solutions. Profitable, but not particularly meaningful. Now, Chase saw an opportunity for transformation. "Clean energy," he announced. Specifically, affordable clean energy solutions for developing nations. The board's reaction was mixed. Some immediately saw the potential both for positive PR and for genuine impact. Others were skeptical, concerned about the massive investment required. "This isn't just about repairing our image," Chase insisted. It's about building something worthwhile, something that outlasts all of us. The words echoed what he'd once told Sloan about why he'd started his company. The memory stung, but it also strengthened his resolve. Perhaps this was how he would move forward, by returning to his original purpose, by creating meaning from the wreckage of the past year. After the meeting, Chase called in his head of security. "Any progress?" he asked, the question so familiar between them that it needed no elaboration. Marcus shook his head. "She's gone completely off the grid, sir. No credit card activity, no social media, no property records. Her parents still live at the same address in Connecticut, but there's no indication she's with them." Chase nodded, unsurprised. He'd been searching for Sloan since the day she disappeared from his life. Not to reconcile, he told himself, but to understand. To hear the full truth of why she'd betrayed him so completely. "Keep looking," he said, as he always did. That night, alone in his penthouse, Chase poured himself a scotch and walked out onto the terrace. The city lights stretched before him, millions of lives intersecting, each with their own stories of love and loss. Somewhere out there, Sloan was living her life without him. Was she happy? Did she ever think of him? Did she regret what she'd done? Or had it been worth the cost? The questions haunted him, keeping him awake long into the night. People who disappear from stories like this always come back later, wishing they hadn't missed the turning point. Be here for it. Subscribe now, before the reunion changes everything. 2 years after the scandal, Sloan Carter sat in a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, far from the glittering skyscrapers of Manhattan. Rain tapped against the windows, a gentle rhythm that had become the soundtrack to her new life. "Your usual Sloan?" Dakota, the barista, asked with a friendly smile. "Thanks," Sloan replied, managing a smile in return. She'd chosen Portland deliberately, a city known for its creativity and independence, where she could rebuild her life on her own terms. She'd found work as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm, rented a modest apartment in a converted warehouse building, and slowly created a new identity for herself. Only her family knew where she was. After Ember's successful treatment and recovery, Sloan had made them promise to keep her location secret. Not that Chase was looking for her, she assumed he'd written her off completely, but because she needed the clean break. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ember. "Just aced my organic chemistry exam. 1 step closer to med school." Sloan smiled, a genuine smile this time. This was why she'd done it all. Ember was thriving, her disease in remission, pursuing her dream of becoming a doctor specializing in rare autoimmune disorders. Their parents had retired comfortably, the remaining funds from the whistleblower securing their future. Everyone Sloan loved was safe and provided for. So why did success taste like ashes in her mouth? She opened her laptop, intending to work on designs for a new client, when a news alert caught her attention. The headline made her heart stop. Breaking. Tech mogul Chase Whitmore announces revolutionary clean energy initiative. Her finger trembled as she clicked the link. There he was, the man who haunted her dreams, standing at a podium, looking somehow both exactly the same and completely different. His face was leaner, more angular, with subtle lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But his presence still commanded attention. His voice still carried that quiet authority that had first drawn her to him. Whitmore Industries is committing $5 billion to develop affordable clean energy solutions for developing nations, Chase was saying. This isn't just about business, it's about creating a sustainable future for communities that have been left behind. Sloan felt a painful surge of pride. This was the man she'd fallen in love with, visionary, compassionate beneath his powerful exterior, determined to use his wealth and influence to make a difference. The man she'd betrayed. She closed the browser, unable to watch anymore. The weight of what she'd done, what she'd lost, pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. "Are you okay?" Dakota asked, setting down her latte. "You look like you've seen a ghost." In many ways, she had. "I'm fine," Sloan lied. "Just a deadline I forgot about." As she packed up her things, unable to focus on work, Sloan made a decision. She would write to Chase, not to ask forgiveness, which she knew she didn't deserve, but to tell him how proud she was of what he was doing. He deserved to know that someone who once knew him well still believed in his capacity for good. Back in her apartment, she drafted and deleted a dozen versions before settling on something simple. Chase, I saw the announcement about your clean energy initiative. I always knew you were capable of changing the world. I'm proud of you, though I've lost the right to say so. I hope you're well. Sloan. She sent it to his personal email, the one few people knew, before she could lose her nerve. She expected nothing in return. The email would probably be filtered by his assistant, or deleted unread. It was enough to have sent it, to have reached across the void one last time. She never expected him to respond, and she certainly never expected him to show up in her conference room 3 days later. Chase stared at the email in his inbox, reading it for the 5th time. 2 years of silence, and now this. His emotions cycled between anger, hurt, longing, and a dangerous flicker of hope. Sir? His new executive assistant, Beckett, stood in the doorway. Your car is waiting to take you to the airport. The Portland team is expecting you tomorrow morning for the site inspection. Portland, where his investigators had finally located Sloan 6 months ago, where he'd impulsively decided to build the first prototype of his clean energy plant, telling himself it was because of the progressive local government and ideal geographic conditions. Lying to himself. Thank you, Beckett. I'll be right down. Chase closed his laptop, Sloan's email unanswered. Tomorrow, he would be in her city. The question was, after everything that had happened, did he want to see her face to face? Did he want to risk his heart again? The flight to Portland gave him time to think, to weigh the pros and cons of seeking her out. Logic said to leave it alone. She had betrayed him, cost his company millions, disappeared without a proper explanation. Opening that wound again was asking for pain. But logic had never governed his feelings for Sloan. By the time his plane landed, Chase had made no decision. He checked into his hotel, reviewed the agenda for tomorrow's site inspection, and tried to focus on the reason he was officially in Portland. The next morning, he arrived at the offices of Cascade Creative. The local marketing firm Whitmore Industries had contracted for the Clean Energy Project's regional branding. The firm came highly recommended, known for their innovative approach and community connections. Chase was reviewing his presentation when the conference room door opened. He looked up, a polite greeting forming on his lips, and the world stopped. Sloan stood frozen in the doorway, her gray eyes wide with shock, her face pale. She looked different, her honey blonde hair cut in a sleek bob, instead of the long waves he remembered, her style more casual than the corporate attire she'd adopted in New York. But the essential Sloanness of her was unchanged, and the impact of seeing her hit Chase like a physical blow. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken words, with history and hurt and something else, something that should have died but hadn't. Miss Carter, he finally said, his voice steadier than he felt. What an unexpected surprise. Her colleagues looked between them, confusion evident on their faces. Mr. Whitmore, she managed, her voice remarkably composed. Welcome to Portland. The meeting proceeded in a surreal haze. Chase presented his company's vision for local marketing support with practiced eloquence. Sloan contributed when necessary, her professional training evidently kicking in despite what must have been emotional turmoil to match his own. No one else in the room seemed to notice the electric current running between them, the weight of unspoken words, the history that hung in the air like smoke. When the meeting ended, her boss was practically giddy. Mr. Whitmore has specifically requested that you lead this project, Sloan. It's an incredible opportunity for you and for our firm. Panic flashed across her face. I'm not sure that's a good idea. I have other commitments and... I insist, Chase interrupted smoothly. Miss Carter's portfolio shows exactly the aesthetic vision we're looking for. Perhaps we could discuss the details over dinner? I'm only in Portland for 2 days. Her colleagues beamed, interpreting his interest as purely professional. Only Sloan recognized the challenge in his eyes, the determination. He wasn't going to let her run away again. Some reunions heal, some reopen every wound. Which will this be? Make your guess in the comments and subscribe to find out if love can actually survive what's coming next. The restaurant Chase had chosen was intimate and upscale, tucked away from the main downtown area. Sloan arrived precisely on time, having changed from her work clothes into a simple black dress that made her feel at least somewhat armored for whatever was to come. Chase was already there, nursing a glass of scotch at a corner table. He stood when he saw her, and for a moment, They simply looked at each other, absorbing the changes 2 years had wrought. "You cut your hair," he said finally, his voice softer than it had been in the conference room. Sloane touched the ends of her bob self-consciously. "It's easier to manage. It suits you." An awkward silence fell as they took their seats. The waiter appeared with menus, and they went through the motions of ordering, both choosing dishes. They barely registered. When they were alone again, Chase leaned forward. "Why did you email me, Sloane?" Direct as always. No small talk, no easing into the conversation. "I told you why. I saw the announcement about your initiative. I wanted you to know I thought it was admirable." After 2 years of silence, his eyes, those piercing blue eyes that had once looked at her with such love, now studied her with wary intensity. Why now? Sloane took a sip of water, buying time. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "Maybe I just needed to reach out, to know you were okay." "Am I okay?" Chase's laugh held no humor. "My company survived a federal investigation. My reputation took a hit but recovered. My net worth actually increased last quarter." He leaned closer. "But the woman I loved, the woman I wanted to spend my life with, sold me out and disappeared." "So no, Sloane, I haven't been okay." The raw pain in his voice cut through her defenses. "I never wanted to hurt you. Yet you did, spectacularly." He took a long drink of his scotch. "What I can't figure out is why. We were talking about marriage, about a future together. Then suddenly you're sending my company's confidential records to federal investigators?" What happened? The moment of truth had arrived. Sloane had rehearsed this conversation in her mind countless times over the past 2 years, but now that it was happening, words failed her. "It wasn't the feds," she said finally. "It was a private party, a whistleblower who offered me money in exchange for the records." Chase's expression hardened. "So it was about money after all. I offered you the world, Sloane, and you chose to betray me for a payday? For my sister." The words burst from her with unexpected force. Ember was dying, Chase. The experimental treatment she needed wasn't covered by insurance. It cost millions we didn't have. Understanding dawned slowly on his face. "Your sister's illness. The one you said was improving." "It wasn't. It was getting worse. The doctors gave her 6 months without the treatment." Sloane's voice broke. "I tried everything else first. Loans, second mortgages, fundraisers. It wasn't enough. Not even close. Why didn't you come to me?" The hurt in his voice was palpable. "I would have paid for it in a heartbeat. You know that. And be indebted to you for the rest of my life? Have my family's survival tied to your generosity?" Sloane shook her head. "I couldn't live with that power imbalance between us. So instead you betrayed my trust and disappeared?" Chase's voice rose slightly before he controlled it. "Do you have any idea what that did to me? I thought I knew you, Sloane. I thought what we had was real." "It was real," she whispered. "The most real thing I've ever known. That's why it broke me to hurt you." Their food arrived, an unwelcome interruption. Neither of them touched it. "How is your sister now?" Chase asked after a long silence. "In remission. The treatment worked." A small smile touched Sloane's lips. "She's back in college, studying to become a doctor. She wants to help people with rare diseases like hers." Something in Chase's expression softened. "I'm glad. Despite everything, I wouldn't want her to suffer." "I know." Sloane met his gaze directly. "That's who you are, Chase. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with you." The past tense hung between them, though both knew it was a lie. "I looked for you," he said quietly. "For months. You disappeared completely." "I had to. I couldn't face you after what I'd done." She pushed her untouched plate away. "I never expected to see you again, especially not in my conference room." "I knew you were in Portland," Chase admitted. "My security team found you 6 months ago." Shock rippled through her. "You knew? All this time?" He nodded. "I told myself I was respecting your choice to leave, that if you wanted contact, you would reach out." A wry smile touched his lips. "Then you did, and I immediately found a reason to come to Portland." "The clean energy project is real, though?" Very real. That part wasn't a pretense. Chase studied her face. I've changed, Sloan. The investigation forced me to look hard at how I was running my company, at the corners we were cutting. I didn't like what I saw. Hence the new direction. Hence the new direction, he agreed. Though I might have gotten there eventually, without the public humiliation. The hint of humor in his voice gave Sloan courage. I'm sorry, Chase. Not just for the betrayal, but for not giving you the chance to help. For not trusting in what we had. Chase was quiet for a long moment. I'm still angry, he said finally. I probably will be for a while. But I understand why you did it. Family is everything. I thought I was your family too. The words pierced Sloane's heart. You were. In my heart, you were. Their eyes met across the table, and for a brief moment, the connection that had always existed between them flared to life, wounded, but not destroyed. Where do we go from here? Sloane asked softly. Chase signaled for the check. I don't know, but I'm in Portland for one more day, and there's a marketing project that apparently needs your expertise. He stood, his expression guarded but no longer cold. Maybe we start there and see what happens. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But as Sloane walked with Chase into the cool Portland evening, it felt like something equally precious. A second chance. The next morning, Sloane arrived at her office to find it transformed. The conference room had been set up as a project workspace, with mood boards, material samples, and digital displays showcasing Whitmore Industries' clean energy initiative. Chase was already there, deep in conversation with her boss. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her heart skip. Good morning, Miss Carter, he said formally, though his eyes held a warmth that belied his professional tone. Ready to get started? The day passed in a blur of creative discussions, strategy sessions, and moments when their hands would accidentally touch over a document or their eyes would meet across the table. With each hour, the tension between them shifted from painful to something more complex, a delicate dance of rediscovery. By late afternoon, they had developed the bones of a marketing strategy that genuinely excited them both. Sloane found herself impressed by how Chase had evolved as a businessman, how his vision now extended beyond profit to impact. You've built something remarkable, she told him during a rare moment alone. This project could change millions of lives. That's the goal. Chase's smile held a hint of the boyish enthusiasm she'd fallen in love with years ago. Though I'll admit, my board thought I was crazy at first. When do you head back to New York? Sloane asked, trying to keep her voice casual. My flight leaves tonight. Chase hesitated. Unless I have a reason to stay longer. The question in his words was unmistakable. Sloane felt herself at a crossroads, the safe, rebuilt life she'd created in Portland. On one path, the unknown possibility of reconnection with Chase on the other. I can't go back to New York, she said quietly. My life is here now. My family needs me nearby. Disappointment flickered across Chase's face before he masked it. I understand. But, Sloane continued, gathering her courage, Portland has excellent airport connections to Manhattan. Chase studied her face, hope cautiously dawning in his eyes. Are you suggesting a long-distance relationship might be possible? I'm suggesting we don't rush to conclusions either way, Sloane replied. What happened between us can't be erased or fixed in a day. But I also can't deny that seeing you again has awakened feelings I thought I'd buried for good. Chase reached across the table, his fingers lightly touching hers. Have dinner with me tonight. Not as a client, not to discuss the past. Just dinner. The warmth of his touch sent electricity through her veins. Okay, she whispered. That evening, they dined at a small local restaurant Sloane loved, far from the corporate setting of the previous night. They talked about neutral topics, books they'd read, places they'd traveled, changes in their lives that had nothing to do with their shared history. For a few precious hours, they were simply two people enjoying each other's company, rediscovering the connection that had once seemed unbreakable. When Chase walked her to her door, the air between them hummed with possibility. I've rescheduled my flight, he said softly. I'll be in Portland for another week, overseeing the initial site preparations. Sloane's heart quickened. That's good for the project. It's not just about the project. Chase's gaze was intense, unwavering. I've spent 2 years trying to forget you, Sloan. It didn't work. Seeing you again, understanding why you did what you did, it hasn't erased the hurt, but it's given me perspective. What are you saying, Chase? I'm saying I'd like to see where this goes. Slowly, carefully, with eyes wide open this time. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch feather light. No secrets between us, no matter how painful the truth might be. Sloan leaned into his touch, allowing herself to hope for the first time in years. I'd like that too. As Chase turned to leave, Sloan remembered something. Chase, wait. There's something else you should know. He turned back, wariness returning to his expression. The whistleblower who approached me, they didn't just offer money. They had information about me, about my family. They knew things they shouldn't have known. Chase's brow furrowed. What kind of things? Details about Ember's condition, about our relationship, about my access to your systems. Sloan wrapped her arms around herself, the memory still chilling. It was like they'd been watching me, waiting for the perfect moment of vulnerability. Did you ever find out who it was? Sloan shook her head. The money came through an offshore account. All communications were anonymous. But whoever it was, they knew exactly what they were doing, exploiting my desperation to get to you. Chase was silent for a long moment, processing this new information. That changes things, he finally said. Not what you did, but the context. Someone targeted you specifically to get to me. I still made the choice, Sloan said quietly. I'm not trying to absolve myself. I know. Chase's expression was thoughtful. But it matters. It matters that someone manipulated you at your most vulnerable. He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. Thank you for telling me. No more secrets, remember? No more secrets, she agreed. It's easy to say we'd forgive, but living it is different. Subscribe now, so when the moment of forgiveness arrives, you don't have to wonder how it ended. The week stretched into 2, then 3. Chase established a temporary office in Portland, citing the importance of the clean energy project's launch. No one at Whitmore Industries questioned his extended stay. The CEO's focus on their new flagship initiative seemed natural. But those closest to Chase knew there was more to the story. Beckett, his executive assistant, fielded calls from New York while scheduling meetings that allowed Chase to spend evenings with Sloan. Marcus, his head of security, discreetly ensured their privacy when they ventured out together. For Sloan, the reconnection with Chase brought both joy and anxiety. Joy in rediscovering the man she'd never stopped loving. Anxiety about the fragility of their new beginning. My colleagues are starting to ask questions, she told Chase one evening as they walked along the Willamette River. They've noticed you're still in Portland and that we're spending time together. Does that bother you? No. Yes. I don't know. Sloan sighed. I've built a life here where no one knows about my past, about what I did. If they find out, they'll judge you, Chase finished for her. The way I did, the way anyone would. Chase stopped walking, turning to face her. I was wrong to judge you so harshly without understanding the full situation. Yes, you betrayed my trust, but you were backed into an impossible corner. You chose your sister's life over our relationship. I can't say I wouldn't have done the same in your position. His words loosened something tight in Sloane's chest. I've spent 2 years hating myself for hurting you, and I've spent 2 years trying to hate you and failing miserably. Chase's smile was rueful. Turns out, love is more stubborn than pride. The admission hung between them, neither quite ready to declare their feelings outright, but both aware of the current pulling them back together. There's someone I want you to meet, Sloan said suddenly, if you're willing. The next day, Sloan drove Chase to a small university campus on the outskirts of Portland. They found Ember in the science library, surrounded by textbooks, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face intent on her studies. She looked up as they approached, confusion turning to shock as she recognized Chase from news photos. Ember, Sloan said nervously. This is Chase Whitmore. Chase. My sister Ember. Ember stood slowly, her expression guarded. The Chase Whitmore? The one you. She trailed off, looking between them in confusion. The one your sister loved, Chase said simply, extending his hand. It's good to finally meet you, Ember. Ember hesitated before shaking his hand. I don't understand. After what happened? It's complicated, Sloane admitted. We're figuring things out. You look well, Chase said, studying the young woman whose life had been saved at the cost of his trust. Sloane tells me you're studying medicine. Immunology, Ember confirmed, still wary. I want to help people with conditions like mine. Noble goal. Chase's voice held genuine approval. The world needs more doctors who understand their patients' experiences firsthand. Ember's posture relaxed slightly. Thank you. I never got to thank you, actually. Thank me? Chase looked puzzled. For what? The treatment that saved my life. It came from your money, even if... She glanced at Sloane, then back to Chase. Even if you didn't know it at the time. An uncomfortable silence fell. Chase broke it with unexpected gentleness. I'm glad you got the treatment you needed, Ember, and I'm glad it worked. The simple statement, free of bitterness or accusation, brought tears to Sloane's eyes. This was the Chase she'd fallen in love with, a man whose compassion ran deeper than his pride. After coffee with Ember, they drove back to Portland in thoughtful silence. Finally, Chase spoke. She seems remarkable. Smart. Determined. She is, Sloane agreed. She's always been the strong one, even when she was sick. She reminds me of you. Sloane glanced at him, surprised. Me? The willingness to fight for what matters, no matter the cost. Chase's profile was contemplative as he gazed out the window. It's a Carter family trait, apparently. Chase, about what Ember said. It's okay, he interrupted gently. Meeting her helped me understand. Seeing her healthy, pursuing her dreams, it makes what happened feel less senseless. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have given the money freely. I should have trusted you enough to ask. Yes, Chase agreed. You should have. But fear makes us do things we later regret. The simple acknowledgement of her mistake, without condemnation, felt like absolution. Sloane blinked back tears as she drove, wondering if healing was really possible after such profound betrayal. That night, in her apartment, Chase asked the question that had been building between them. What are we doing, Sloane? Really? She sat beside him on her small sofa, close enough to feel his warmth, but not touching. I don't know. Trying to fix what broke? Seeing if there's anything left to salvage? Is that what you want? To salvage what we had? Sloane considered the question carefully. What we had was beautiful, but it was built on an uneven foundation. I was always aware of the power imbalance between us, your wealth, your influence. It made me keep things from you, like Ember's worsening condition, because I was afraid of becoming a charity case. You were never that to me, Chase protested. I know, but the fear was real. She met his gaze directly. If we're going to try again, it has to be different. More equal, more honest. I agree. Chase took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. I've been thinking about something you said about not being able to leave Portland because your family is here. Yes? What if I told you I've been considering opening a West Coast headquarters for Whitmore Industries, the clean energy division specifically? Sloane's eyes widened. In Portland? It makes sense strategically. The city's commitment to sustainability aligns with our new direction. The talent pool is excellent. And, he smiled slightly, the quality of life is supposedly outstanding. You would move your company's operations for me? The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Not entirely. New York would remain our primary headquarters, but a significant expansion here, yes. Chase's expression grew serious. Not just for you, Sloane, for us. For the possibility of us. The weight of his words settled between them, not a declaration of love, not yet, but a commitment to creating space for love to grow again. I'd like that, Sloane whispered. The possibility of us. Chase leaned forward, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that felt both familiar and entirely new, tentative at first, then deepening as years of longing broke through the barriers they'd built. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. I should go, Chase said reluctantly. We agreed to take this slowly. Sloane nodded, though everything in her wanted him to stay. Slowly, right. At the door, he turned back. "Have dinner with me tomorrow? There's someone I'd like you to meet this time." The next evening, Chase took Sloane to an upscale restaurant where an elegant older woman waited at a corner table. She stood as they approached, her assessing gaze taking in Sloane with undisguised curiosity. "Sloane, this is Eleanor Whitmore, my mother," Chase said. "Mom, this is Sloane Carter." Eleanor Whitmore extended a perfectly manicured hand. "So you're the woman who broke my son's heart." "Mom," Chase warned. "It's all right," Sloane said, meeting the older woman's gaze steadily. "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore, I am." Eleanor's expression remained neutral. "And now you're back in his life." "We're exploring that possibility," Chase interjected, his hand resting protectively at the small of Sloane's back. "I see." Eleanor gestured to the chairs. "Shall we sit? I find it's better to have difficult conversations over good wine." The dinner that followed was a masterclass in polite interrogation. Eleanor Whitmore, a former corporate attorney before her retirement, asked pointed questions about Sloane's background, her work, her family, and most uncomfortably, her intentions toward Chase. "You must understand my concern," Eleanor said, sipping her wine. "My son is not just any man. He's built something extraordinary. Something that affects thousands of lives. His choice of partner matters." "I'm aware of who Chase is," Sloane replied evenly, "both professionally and personally. And yet you betrayed him once. What assurance does he have that you won't do so again?" "Mom, that's enough," Chase said firmly. "Sloane's actions had context you don't fully understand." "Then help me understand," Eleanor challenged, looking between them. Chase glanced at Sloane, silently asking permission. When she nodded, he explained the situation with Ember, the whistleblower's approach, the impossible choice Sloane had faced. Eleanor listened without interruption, her expression softening almost imperceptibly. When Chase finished, she turned to Sloane. "You chose your sister's life over my son's trust." "Yes," Sloane admitted. "I would give anything to have found another way. But yes." Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Family loyalty is a virtue, even when it comes at a terrible price. She set down her wine glass. "Chase's father died when he was 16. Did he tell you that?" "Yes," Sloane said softly. "What he probably didn't tell you is that I worked 3 jobs to put him through college, that we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment so we could afford his tuition, that I would have done anything to secure his future." Eleanor's gaze was steady. "So while I don't condone what you did to my son, I understand the impulse that drove you." The acknowledgement, coming from the person who loved Chase most in the world, brought unexpected tears to Sloane's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Eleanor nodded once, then turned to Chase. "She has courage, this one, and principles, however painfully applied." A small smile touched her lips. "I can see why you never got over her." Later, as Chase drove Sloane home, she reflected on the evening. "Your mother is formidable." Chase chuckled. "That's putting it mildly. She's been my fiercest protector since my father died." "She loves you very much." "Yes," he glanced at her. "And surprisingly, I think she might come to like you, despite everything." "Really? I got more of an I'll tolerate you for my son's sake vibe." From my mother, that's practically a ringing endorsement. Chase's smile faded into seriousness. "What she said about understanding your choice that means something. She doesn't give her approval easily." "I wasn't seeking her approval," Sloane said quietly, "just her understanding." "I know. That's probably why she gave it." When they reached Sloane's apartment, Chase walked her to her door, as always. This time, however, Sloane didn't say goodnight immediately. "Would you like to come in?" she asked, her voice soft, but certain. Chase studied her face. "Are you sure?" "We agreed to take things slowly." "Some things can't be rushed," Sloane agreed. "Trust, forgiveness, those take time. But I've spent 2 years missing you, and I'm tired of pretending I don't want you here with me tonight." Chase's eyes darkened. "If I come in, Sloane, I'm not sure I'll be able to leave." "I'm counting on that," she whispered, taking his hand and leading him inside. Their coming together was both familiar and new bodies remembering each other's rhythms while discovering changes time had wrought. Afterward, lying in the quiet darkness of Sloane's bedroom, Chase traced patterns on her bare shoulder. I never stopped loving you, he confessed, the words falling into the darkness between them. I tried. God knows I tried. But you were always there, in everything I did, every decision I made. Sloane turned to face him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I never stopped loving you either. Even when I hated myself for hurting you, I loved you. Where do we go from here? Chase asked, echoing her question from days earlier. Forward, Sloane said simply. Together, if that's what you want. It's all I want, he assured her, pulling her closer. It's all I've ever wanted. If you've ever needed a reminder that broken doesn't mean finished, subscribe. Join thousands who come here to believe in love again. The week stretched into a month as Chase found increasingly creative reasons to remain in Portland. He rented a downtown apartment, established a permanent office for Whitmore Industries' West Coast operations, and spent every free moment rebuilding his relationship with Sloane. They moved cautiously, both aware of the fragility of what they were creating. There were difficult conversations, moments when old wounds reopened, when trust wavered, when the weight of their history threatened to overwhelm the present. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I just asked you for help with Ember? Sloane asked one rainy Sunday morning as they lay in bed, listening to the patter of droplets against the windows. Chase considered the question seriously. I'd like to think I would have given you the money without hesitation, but honestly, I might have tried to handle it, to fix it my way. I was used to solving problems with my resources, my connections, and I was afraid of exactly that of becoming a problem for you to solve. I understand that now. Chase propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her. We both had blind spots. I didn't see how my wealth created a power imbalance between us. You didn't see that I loved you enough to help without conditions. We were young, Sloane said softly. And now? Now we're a little older, a little wiser, hopefully. Chase smiled, tracing the curve of her cheek. Definitely wiser. I've learned that all the money in the world means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. Someone who sees you, not your bank account. And I've learned that sometimes accepting help isn't weakness, it's allowing someone to love you the way they know how. These moments of understanding were balanced by lighter times, exploring Portland together, working side by side on the clean energy project, building new memories to stand alongside the old. One particularly significant moment came when Chase met Sloane's parents for the first time. They had driven down from Connecticut to visit Ember and were understandably shocked to learn that Chase was back in Sloane's life. After everything that happened? Her father asked, his protective instincts flaring. Dad, it's complicated, Sloane began. No, Chase interrupted gently. It's actually quite simple. I love your daughter. What happened between us was painful for both of us, but we're finding our way back to each other. Mrs. Carter studied Chase thoughtfully. You're either a saint or a fool, young man. Chase smiled. Probably a bit of both. But I know what matters to me now, and that's Sloane. The simple declaration won over Sloane's parents, who had seen firsthand how their daughter had suffered in the aftermath of the betrayal. They understood, better than most, the impossible choice she had faced. Just be sure this time, her father said quietly to Sloane when they had a moment alone. Be sure he's forgiven you completely. Half forgiveness is worse than none at all. His words stayed with Sloane, prompting her to ask Chase that night, have you really forgiven me? Completely? Chase took her question seriously, as he always did. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Sloane. It's a process. There are days when the hurt feels fresh again, when I remember how it felt to discover what you'd done. Sloane's heart sank, but Chase wasn't finished. But then I look at you, at who you are and why you did what you did, and I choose to forgive again. Every day, I make that choice, and every day, it gets a little easier. That's not very reassuring, Sloane admitted. It's honest, Chase replied. And isn't that what we promised each other? Complete honesty, even when it's difficult? Sloane nodded, recognizing the truth in his words. So where does that leave us? It leaves us here, together, building something new, something stronger because it's been tested. Chase took her hands in his. I don't want perfect, Sloane. I want real. And this, us, with all our scars and history, this is real. 6 months after their unexpected reunion, Chase took Sloane to the nearly completed clean energy plant. The sunset painted the innovative structure in hues of gold and rose as they stood on the observation deck. "It's magnificent," Sloane said, genuinely awed by what he had created. "It's just the beginning," Chase replied, his arm around her waist. "We're breaking ground on similar facilities in 3 developing nations next year. You've transformed your company completely." Chase turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Not just my company. You transformed me, Sloane. What happened between us, as painful as it was, forced me to reevaluate everything, to become someone better." Tears gathered in Sloane's eyes. "I never meant to hurt you. I know that now." Chase's voice was gentle. "And I understand why you felt you had no choice. Family comes first. It always should." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Sloane's breath caught. "This isn't a proposal," Chase said quickly. "Not yet. We're still healing, still building something new from the ashes of what we lost." He opened the box to reveal not a ring, but a delicate gold key. "This is a key to my apartment," he explained. "And to the house I'm building, halfway between Portland and the energy plant. It's a promise that wherever I am, you have a place there. That I'm committed to making this work, however long it takes." Sloane took the key, her fingers trembling. "Chase, I never stopped loving you," he said simply. "Even when I thought I hated you. Even when the pain was at its worst. I tried, but my heart wouldn't let go." Sloane stepped into his arms, her tears falling freely now. "I never stopped loving you either. Not for a single day." As the sun set over the clean energy plant, a symbol of transformation, of second chances, of building something better from the ruins of the past, Chase and Sloane sealed their new beginning with a kiss that tasted of forgiveness, hope, and the promise of tomorrow. Don't stop before the ending that proves redemption is real. Subscribe now, because missing the final scene means missing the answer you've been waiting for. 1 year later, Sloane stood in the garden of the house Chase had built. Their house, now watching as Ember laughed with Chase's mother by the outdoor fireplace. The two had formed an unlikely bond, the formidable Eleanor Whitmore taking Sloane's sister under her wing, offering guidance as Ember navigated medical school. "They're thick as thieves these days," Chase observed, coming to stand beside Sloane. "Mom's already talking about funding a research position for Ember after she graduates." "Your mother is surprisingly sentimental beneath that tough exterior," Sloane replied with a smile. "Must be why she likes you so much now." The gathering was small, but significant family and closest friends, celebrating the official opening of the Portland headquarters of Whitmore Clean Energy. The company had grown exponentially over the past year, its innovative technology bringing affordable power to communities from rural America to remote villages in Africa. Sloane had played her part, heading the marketing division that communicated the company's vision to the world. Her work had helped transform Whitmore Industries' image from a faceless tech corporation to a leader in sustainable development. But more important than professional success was the personal journey she and Chase had undertaken. Day by day, they had rebuilt trust, relearned each other's hearts, and created a relationship stronger than before because it was founded on complete honesty and mutual respect. "Penny for your thoughts?" Chase asked, slipping his arm around her waist. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," Sloane replied. "A year ago, I never could have imagined this." "No?" Chase smiled. "I could. From the moment I saw you again in that conference room, I knew we'd find our way back to each other." "Such confidence," Sloane teased. "Even after everything that happened?" "Especially after everything that happened." Chase's expression grew serious. "What we went through, it either breaks you completely or makes you unbreakable. There's no middle ground." "And which are we?" Instead of answering, Chase reached into his pocket. "I was going to wait until later, make some grand gesture, but suddenly, I don't want to wait another minute." He dropped to one knee there in the garden, opening a small velvet box to reveal a diamond ring that caught the late afternoon sunlight. "Sloane Carter, we've been through fire and come out stronger. I've loved you through betrayal, separation, and reconciliation. I want to love you through whatever comes next, the joys and challenges, the victories and setbacks, all of it. Will you marry me?" Sloane's vision blurred with tears as she looked down at the man who had found the strength to forgive the unforgivable, who had loved her enough to start again. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Chase Whitmore, I will marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, applause broke out. They turned to find their families watching from the patio, glasses raised in celebration. "They knew?" Sloane asked, laughing through her tears. "Of course they knew," Chase replied. "I asked your father's permission last week, and my mother helped choose the ring." "Sneaky," Sloane accused, but her smile was radiant. Later that evening, as their guests departed and twilight settled over the garden, Chase and Sloane stood together on the terrace, looking out over the lights of Portland in the distance. "Are you happy?" Chase asked, his arms wrapped around her from behind. Sloane leaned back against him, feeling the solid strength of his chest, the steady beat of his heart. "Completely." "Are you?" "More than I ever thought possible." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You know, some people would say I was a fool to give you a second chance. Some people would say I didn't deserve one," Sloane acknowledged. "But that's the thing about love," Chase said thoughtfully. "It's not about deserving. It's about choosing. Choosing to see beyond the mistakes, to the person beneath. Choosing to believe that what's broken can be mended, often stronger than before." Sloane turned in his arms to face him. "Is that what we are? Stronger than before?" "Without question." Chase's eyes, those blue eyes that had first captivated her years ago, held absolute certainty. "What we have now is built on truth, the hard, painful truth of who we are, what we're capable of, both the good and the bad. There's freedom in that kind of honesty." "Freedom," Sloane repeated, liking the word. "Yes, that's exactly it. I'm not afraid anymore, not of asking for help when I need it, not of being vulnerable with you. And I'm not afraid of losing control, of letting someone see the real me beneath the CEO facade." Chase smiled. "We had to lose each other to find ourselves, and then find each other again." As night fell around them, stars appearing one by one in the darkening sky, Sloane thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment, the betrayal that had shattered their first chance at happiness, the years of separation and regret, the unexpected reunion that had offered redemption. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, of pain resurfacing, of trust tested. But through it all, one truth had remained constant. The love between them, wounded but never destroyed, had proven stronger than pride, stronger than hurt, stronger even than betrayal. "I used to think love was about grand gestures and perfect moments," Sloane said softly. "Now I know it's about forgiveness, about seeing someone at their worst and choosing them anyway." "About second chances," Chase added, "and making them count." Their lips met in a kiss that held the promise of all the days to come. Days they would face together, stronger for having been broken, wiser for having lost their way, and infinitely more grateful for having found each other again. If this story stirred something in you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Tell us in the comments what you would have done, and subscribe to Mr. Sterling's Secrets of Love for more stories that help you forgive a little faster and love a little deeper. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other, but about flawed, wounded souls choosing each other again and again, despite everything. And in that choice, that daily, deliberate decision to love, lies the most powerful redemption of all.